Go ahead and get started. Cool. So, hello guys. This is the title of this presentation is unapologetically being yourself. And I'm Mason, and that is Rachel. I'm sure you could see her somewhere. I don't know where she is on y'all's screen. So we're gonna go ahead and introduce ourselves. So I am still a senior. I have a couple weeks left of high school, and I've been in FBLA ever since my freshman year. And it's just been an amazing experience, and I've loved every second of it. And I'm going to take what I've learned from that and kind of my experiences there and hopefully take it to George Mason, where I'm going to be going to college next year. And that's my introduction. Rachel, what do you got?
Hi guys, I'm Rachael. I'm your Virginia FBLA state reporter, and I'm also a senior right now. I'll be at UVA next year, and I plan on continuing in PBL through college, and I'm really excited about it. Okay, so just a quick overview of what we're going to be going through today. We're going to start off with just a quick little icebreaker. We just have a couple questions for you guys, and then we're going to answer the question of why it's important to be yourself. And then we're going to talk a little bit about where you can start, because I oftentimes find that that's always the hardest part, to figure out, okay, where do I start in order to achieve my goals? And then we're going to go into the importance of confidence and how that applies to a leader, how that applies to being a leader, especially as members of FBLA.
Yeah, so these are our poll questions. So the first one is, who are some people that you look up to, and what about them do you particularly admire? So you can go ahead and answer that. If you want to answer in your head, answer in the chat, whatever you want to do. We can go ahead and kind of just go through those real quickly. And the second question is, do you care what others think about you? Why or why not? And that's just kind of going to lead us into what we're talking about today. So that answer, you don't necessarily have to share it, just kind of keep that in the back of your head and chew on it while we go through this presentation. So if you want to take a second and answer those, you can.
All right, so we picked out a couple of quotes that we thought really encapsulated everything that we wanted to talk about today, so I wanted to start off with those and share them with you. So the first one is, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. And the second one is, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. And I just thought those were really nice to start us off here, really get us in the mindset for what we're going to be talking about today.
So these are just a couple points as far as why is this an important topic. So being yourself, it just affecting your daily life. It just makes, I feel like it just makes your daily life better. You're not really worried about the opinions of other people, the opinion of the world around you, because you're just focused on being yourself and improving yourself and being the best version of you that you can. So how can you start learning to be more comfortable in your own skin? So we're going to kind of go through that and expand on that more, but it's a lot of it is built around confidence, which I know it's hard to just be like, oh, be confident in yourself. Like you can't really just say that. And then, it's a lot harder to apply. So we're going to go ahead and hit on some points for that, but it benefits you because you just feel better. You feel better about yourself. You feel better about other people. And it really helps you kind of move through life.
All right, so Dr. Davis, who has a PhD in psychology, lists 5 steps on how to be yourself. And I think if you're going to take away anything today, these are probably the easiest parts to remember. And I think that they kind of cover all of the basics on where to start. So the first is to accept yourself. Now, this includes the good parts of yourself and the bad parts. You have to accept who you are in order to become comfortable with yourself and in order to grow and change. The second is to identify negative self-talk. And I think this is something that we're all guilty of. We all tend to to talk really down on ourselves, but it's really important to try to eliminate self-talk and change it into something more optimistic. Like, for example, instead of saying, wow, I'm a really bad public speaker, say, wow, public speaking is something that I need to work on in the future. So make it a more optimistic thing in terms of saying, this is something that I can improve on. The third is to celebrate your strengths. And I think, like, going off of what Mason was talking about, I think this really helps to make you more confident if you realize, here are the things that I'm really good at, and when you do those things, you'll become more confident in them because you know that you can do it. And it makes it a lot easier to be yourself when you're feeling confident and you're doing things that you're really comfortable with. The fourth is to express yourself. I think it's really important to find some kind of outlet where you feel like you can be authentically yourself 100% of the time. Now, this might be a special club, maybe a sports team, or maybe your place of employment, but I think it's really important to have that one place where you can be yourself all the time and you feel really comfortable in your capabilities and what you can do. And the fifth and final step is to show your vulnerability. Now, I think this is really, really difficult because sometimes it can be very hard to show people the parts of yourself that you're not very proud of. So maybe there are certain parts of yourself that you're embarrassed about or certain things that you want to work on. But it's important to push yourself out of your comfort zone and to show people that you're a human being and you have flaws, and to just accept yourself for those flaws and work on them as you go.
Yeah, so the starting point here is to just kind of build yourself up. So like we said earlier, learning to love yourself is hard, but you can definitely do it. It's definitely doable. And so a lot of what Rachel said, focus on your strengths, but keep your weaknesses in mind because those are areas where you can grow. Your strengths are only you know your strengths, and they're really places for you to shine, right? So it, you can really show people what, hey, I'm good at this, or I really like doing this thing. But with weaknesses, just make sure you're improving them. They're not, you don't necessarily, have to talk down on yourself, talk negatively about yourself, but just make sure that you're improving those weaknesses. And you have to kind of break it down into areas, right? You have to decide what areas of yourself you want to focus on. And that makes bettering yourself more efficient, and it just makes that process a lot easier.
So I think something that's really, really important is to set goals for yourself. And the easiest way to do that is to figure out, okay, where am I right now? So maybe make a list of your strengths and your weaknesses and figure out, what do I have to work with right now? And then you can use a role model or maybe some certain characteristics that you want to use to better yourself. So just looking through the chat, Sarah says that she looks up to her older sister because she's very persistent. So maybe if Sarah feels like she isn't very persistent, then that's something that she can work towards. But I also think it's important for Sarah to realize that she's her own person and she will never be her sister, but if that's something that she sees in her sister that she really likes and she wants to work on it in herself, then I think it's a really nice goal to set. So maybe she wants to set in a few goals to work towards that by doing little things every day or a little thing every month in order to work towards that goal and to better herself. So then she can become more confident in herself and more comfortable in her own skin. It's really important that you set attainable goals. So like I mentioned, you can't strive to be exactly like somebody because that's not the whole point. The point is to better yourself in order to feel more comfortable in who you are.
So like we've been saying, this is like a revolving point. Confidence here is key. So be prepared to change your mindset, right? So in the beginning, you're gonna struggle a little bit, and you just have to be prepared to go, okay, I got this, I can do this, and I'm gonna go ahead and push through this, right? And the biggest thing is stepping out of your comfort zone. That's huge. That will build confidence because you might fail. Like I know I'm stepping out of my comfort zone right now, just doing this. And if I might fail, it could be bad, but I can take it and go, okay, I'm not as good as that, and I can take it and learn from it, right? So failure is okay as long as you learn from it and you improve on it.
Another really important thing to note here is that you are a unique person. Every single person that you meet is going to be different. And that's why it's so important to realize your strengths and weaknesses, because they're what make you you. They're what sets you apart from everybody else. And so you want to find what makes you unique, and oftentimes you can capitalize on it. So if you're a really good communicator, maybe you should, try to go for more volunteer opportunities, or maybe apply for a part-time job somewhere where you can really utilize these strengths that you have, and you can become more comfortable in your yourself because you're doing things that you're really good at and things that make you really happy. Not everyone will like you, but that's okay. I think it's something that we all have to realize at one point or another in our lives, that not everyone that you meet will like you. And that's because we're all very different. We all have different goals. We all think about things different. We all have our own opinions, and that's what makes us unique. But not everyone will like you for that. But it's very important to keep going on and to be yourself no matter what, and to not change for the people that don't like you. If you can't change it, don't worry about it. I think, at least for me, I'm very guilty of overthinking about things, and then things that I can't control, and then I end up messing them up way worse than they would have gone if I had just taken that time and instead prepared really well or worked really hard to better myself. So just don't overthink the things that are out of your control, but try to better yourself in any way that you can, and take time for self-reflection and focus on your strengths and your weaknesses, how you can grow.
Yeah, so just make sure you guys are treading lightly here, right? Because there's an element of saying, okay, I don't care what people think about me. I'm going to do whatever I want. But you can't really go too far with that, because you still have to respect the people around you, respect their values, respect their thoughts. So respect is definitely a big key here, so that you have to kind of walk that balance of, I don't care what you think about me, but you can say whatever you want, and I'm not going to lash out or be out of control for any reason. So the key there is also self-awareness, right? So you have to be aware of yourself, and you also have to be aware of the people around you. Another thing that helps is having zero expectations of other people. So it's kind of the idea of, if you set the bar low, and then, well, maybe not set the bar low, but if you don't have expectations of other people, and then they go above and beyond and they surprise you, it just makes that much better, because you weren't expecting, a super high, I don't really know how to say that, but that's a point. So you will receive pushback from people, right? So like Rachel was saying, not everyone is going to like you, and you're not going to like everyone. You will receive pushback from people. The process of refining yourself isn't easy, but you take that pushback and you go, okay, I hear what you're saying, and I can make an improvement here, and then that's the end of it.
So applying this back to being FBLA members and trying to become better leaders, confidence in everything that you do is so important. So you can't just be confident in the things that you're really good at, but you have to be confident in the risks you take. And if you're confident in everything that you do, people will generally follow you, as long as you're being authentically yourself. When you're being yourself as a leader, people will see that. And if you're not, people will also see that, and they will be a lot less likely to follow you and to support the choices that you make and the projects that you want to work towards. The less time that you spend worrying, then you can spend more time actually achieving your goals. So as I mentioned earlier, try not to overthink things. Try to work towards things instead. And it's important to take time to self-reflect, but don't overthink things that are out of your control and things that you can't change. People will gravitate towards people that are being authentically themselves. People like that. I mean, think about it in your life. You wouldn't want to follow somebody that you don't really know, somebody that you don't trust. You want to follow somebody that you know exactly who they are, and they're comfortable and confident in everything that they do. So it's so important as a leader to be yourself and to have confidence in yourself and your capabilities.
So some final points to touch on here is, don't worry, it's not all going to happen at one point, right? You're not going to go, okay, I'm going to improve myself, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to care what people think, it's going to happen now. This takes time. Refining yourself takes improvement, and you have to constantly be able to check in on yourself, right? During this process, you have to go, okay, is this working for me? Is this what I want? And you have to be able to change and keep yourself on your toes, and make sure you're supporting that, right? And don't be afraid to be yourself. It's hard, and you'll have pushback, but I promise you'll live more freely. And it's just more freeing to know that you're not trying to be somebody else, trying to please everyone around you constantly, and you can be authentic and be truly who you are.
All right, so we can open the chat now if you guys have any questions about anything that we talked about. And we also left our contact information up here if you want to reach out to us, if you have any personal questions, or if you need personal advice at any point in time. And I went through and I read all of your responses to our icebreaker, and they were all really good. So I really appreciate that. Thank you guys for being open. So it looks like Will has a question. Do you think that by showing your vulnerability, it allows you to be a better person? Mason, do you want to take this one or would you like me to answer it?
Yeah, sure. So I definitely think it does. I think that when you open yourself up to other people, they will be more inclined to kind of open up to you, right? And so it kind of just shows, hey, I'm not a robot. I'm a real person. I have, problems with things, as do you. And it just makes you think about things in a different way. And I definitely love like getting advice from other people. So I'm more than willing to, expose a vulnerability that I have to other people because maybe I'm overthinking it, or maybe there's things that I'm not thinking about. But if I keep those things in my head and I kind of battle them myself, I'm looking at it from one perspective, right? So you get the perspective of other people when you open up like that.
I think going off of that, if you're not being vulnerable, it makes it really hard to grow because, again, you're not being completely yourself. You want to show people all of the parts of yourself. And I think as a leader, it's especially super important to be vulnerable because people want to follow you. They want to see that you're a real person. So I do think it makes you a better person in general. And I think it's something that we could all work towards. Yeah. Looks like Sarah has a question as well. Can you elaborate on what you meant by no expectations?
Yeah, so I can go ahead and answer that. So no expectations. Unfortunately, the reality is like a lot of people aren't going to be keen, aren't authentic. There, a lot of people like will just follow other people, and it's because it is hard to be authentic all the time. So you can't expect that from everyone all the time, and you just have to be aware that not everyone is gonna be there, is gonna meet you in that, and that's just something you have to be aware of.
I think it's important to set expectations in like certain contexts. Like if you have like specific trust for people and there's things that like they have obligations to you and things that they're supposed to get done, I think in that context. But I think what we really meant by no expectations is that if you are setting expectations for somebody, it's really hard for them to be completely themselves because they expect to fit into like a certain I guess like stereotype that you might have for them. So we mean like no expectations as to like what kind of leader they're going to be or what kind of person they are or what their strengths and weaknesses are. But like Miss Mills just said, I think you can
Yeah.
expect respect, and absolutely, I think that's 100% true. I think there are like certain basic expectations that we should have for everyone, especially in the business field or when you're working with people. You expect that when people say they're going to do something, they're going to get it done. But I think it's important to let people grow and to give them that room and to not necessarily set expectations on how they do things because everyone does things a little bit differently. Will asks, "Is it bad to be overconfident?" I think in certain contexts it can be. I think it's really important to realize that things can go wrong, and I think you should plan in case that those things go wrong. But I think if you're going to take a risk, you have to be confident in it, or people won't follow you. And I think being a leader, you're going to take risks. I think in all aspects of life, you're going to take risks. So it's important to be confident in that and confident in yourself. But also, take criticism from others, humble yourself. Keep in mind that people are going to expect you to change and grow when you make a mistake. So don't be overconfident, but have confidence in yourself. It's really important. I think you have to try to find the happy medium for you, and you don't really want to be on either side of the spectrum. You don't want to be overly confident and you don't want to have no confidence at all. It's really important to find a balance in your life that works for you.
I 100% agree.
Ashley asks, if you do make a mistake, how should you go about addressing the fact that you made a mistake to those that were following your leadership?
I can go ahead and touch on that. So again, with the authenticity, we touched on kind of on that leader slide, you become more transparent, right? So you just have to be able to say, as the leader of this team or as the leader of this project, in any way that you're going to be that leader, right? You have to go ahead and say, guys, you know, I messed up. This was my fault. And here's how we're going ahead and fix it, or here's how I can go ahead and fix it. But there's an element of transparency there because you're confident in yourself and you're also confident in your team, right? So you have to be able to say, I made a mistake and I apologize, and here's how we're going to fix it.
I think it's important to realize where you messed up and to really reflect on what went wrong, and then decide as a team, well, where do we go from this in order to better ourselves, and how can we make sure that nothing like this happens again? So I think everyone has failures. We all mess up at times, but it's really important that we learn from them and we grow from them, because if you don't, you'll continue to make the same mistakes. Are there any others?
Any other questions? Okay. Do you guys have any feedback or comments for us? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your Tuesday. And if that is all, then I think we're good to go.